Hello, everyone. It is Friday, June 14th. This is sig-aws. I am your moderator, facilitator, Justin Santa Barbara. I work at Google. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be put on the internet. Please be mindful of our code of conduct. Otherwise, I pasted a link to the agenda into our chat. We actually have almost nothing on our, well, we have nothing on the agenda.
Right.
Please feel free to add things to the agenda. But Jay and I were just talking beforehand about a topic, which I will hand over to Jay.
Hi. Hey, I'm Jay Pipes. I recently joined the EKS team at AWS, and I really am just interested in how myself personally, as well as other folks on the EKS team and broader at AWS, can assist you, Justin, as well as anyone else who's in sig-aws, soon to be UG AWS, or not really sure how all that works yet still. Yeah, I mean, the questions that I have for you, Justin, are primarily around, how can we assist you and future leads. And are there housekeeping type tasks that get annoying that we can take off your plate? What are some of the most important things from an AWS outward communication perspective that I can help facilitate? Whether that's, coordinating with internal product folks with regards to roadmap, or whether it is sort of outside of EKS, outside of AWS, getting help on tutorials and things like that, whatever it is. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, is what are your big pain points and how can I help?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jay, and welcome, and thank you for that very kind offer. That's great. I'm super happy to hear that. I think, yes, by way of background, the sig-aws as a SIG is likely to fold into SIG cloud provider to try to achieve greater sort of harmony and homogeneity amongst the different cloud provider implementations. And the current plan is that sig-aws will transform into a user group. I don't think I don't think it's the case that you don't yet understand it yet. I think it's the case that no one understands it, because user groups are still going through the approval process. So it's all very much like a work in progress. But yes, the intention is that sig-aws is sort of unique in that it is more user-facing, much more user-facing than other SIGs, which tend to be more development-focused. And SIG Cloud Provider will likely be the more development-focused stream, and user group will be the more user-facing stream.
Right.
That said, there is obviously a ton of work to be done on all things related to Kubernetes on AWS, and all help is always welcome. Some of the ideas I jotted down, like we have a large number of PRs and issues open in the Kubernetes repository, and I'm sure amongst
you mean K/K or in sig-aws itself, or
in KK has a lot of issues open.
Right, there's thousands.
Yes, there's only 2,000 open, which is less bad than it used to be. The pull request is much more daunting. There are over 1,000 pull requests, which is really scary. In those issues are bound to be a huge number of duplicates, and but also some nuggets of things that we really should address. And maybe we should go through a section, and maybe we should, like, any help with triaging those is always very welcome. And maybe we should try to do a session where we actually go through and do that on video or something like that to help people understand the process and get everyone up to speed that wants to.
That would certainly be useful for newcomers like myself. I think, I've kind of just started out with some documentation contributions and reviewing a number of things coming into the SIG docs and Kubernetes website and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I've wondered how you sort of prioritize and select the the best things to kind of put your focus towards, just because there is a sheer volume of incoming issues and pull requests. What are maybe some of the tools that you use? Like I've asked Dims, whether he uses particular tools, and he kind of pointed me to Octocat as something that he uses, as well as um, the Prow, or is it Prow, or is it the PR tool?
There's a PR dashboard.
PR dashboard, I think, yeah.
Which is sort of helpful.
Yeah, I can imagine, though, it can quickly get out of hand as well.
I think the whole thing gets out of hand pretty fast, and honestly, I don't have a great process, but
okay.
Yeah, I think what you're doing sounds great in terms of like looking at the docs. I think when you start looking, if you reach the end of the like obvious things, like once you go into the issues, I imagine you will find a whole nother set of challenges in there.
Sure.
But
yeah.
that to me is like it's sort of a getting started way. And then I think code reviews are super helpful, because I tend to think the best way that people produce fixes is when they're sort of scratching their own itch. And so a lot of those issues are probably fixed in those 1,000 PRs that are open. Not necessarily ready to be merged, but certainly addressed. And like looking at the AWS ones would be super helpful there. And also the same thing you brought up the KK issue, the same thing in the other repos, like the Kubernetes SIGs ones related to AWS. I suspect there are fewer issues outside of, I think most issues tend to be open first in KK, but the fix might well be in a different repository. And yeah, those, and looking at the code and reviewing the code and fixing things if you want to, and surfacing those are something that everyone can do and is super helpful. So like you asked how I actually find things out. Honestly, the real way is if people surface things to me as in like, this is really hitting us and like we really need this PR merged.
And generally, do you get that feedback via Slack, or the mailing list seem kind of slightly used?
I think the mailing list would be the best channel, to be honest.
Okay. Just because of the sort of written archival nature of it?
Yes. I think Slack works for other people.
Slack isn't
it's
kind of archived, but it's sometimes a little difficult to
Slack tends to not work for me personally. Just like there's too much volume. It's even worse than the GitHub issues. So it's like, yes, the mailing list for now tends to be low enough volume that I will see it. Obviously once everyone starts putting things on the mailing list, we'll have to move again, but
Right. Okay.
So that would be great, I think. And then, yeah, your idea of doing tutorials and, one thing we also have to do is every release we're supposed to put together some release notes, and we haven't really figured out, now that most of our development is happening outside of the KK repo, like what goes into those release notes. And it's not really obvious. I don't think we know. And so like, I think trying to understand what should go into those release notes, into the open source release notes, because you can always put things in the EKS release notes, right?
Oh, so you're specifically talking about AWS related things that are fixed, or new features or whatever that go into, say, the KMS encryption provider plugin, or like the sort of external ecosystem AWS related things?
Exactly. And today it's like the KMS encryption provider, right? But once we pull the cloud provider out of tree, there should be no AWS code in tree. There should be no in KK. There should be no GCP code in tree.
Right.
And there will be nothing of relevance to SIG AWS or SIG cloud provider in the open source release notes if they restrict themselves to KK.
Has it been and just excuse me for asking these silly questions because I'm very new to all this, but has it been the responsibility of SIG AWS in the past to sort of collate the various release notes that are related to AWS functionality or that kind of thing? Or has it just kind of been like a general responsibility of the release team?
It has generally been, I think, where it's
or does the release team like reach out to SIG AWS and say, hey, do you want to include in the release notes some AWS specific things that are important?
The release team tends to do that, but what has happened recently is the every PR that merges gets a release note block.
Okay.
And those are sort of aggregated by the release team, who then typically will produce like a first draft and then like ask the various SIGs to go and like polish them and prioritize them and like say like within your SIG, like which ones are important, which ones are not.
Okay. Yeah, I think I noted that in when I was reading some of the release team roles that Josh Burkus had sent out. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I think understanding what we should, thinking about what we should put in there and how we're going to aggregate things from other other repos is really interesting and might be a nice extension of the docs work. And then the other thing is, you know, you mentioned tutorials. I think tutorials are great because they really sort of preempt a ton of issues and a ton of like docs. It's a nice way to structure docs,
Sure.
and then it avoids a bunch of challenges. So yeah, any of those that you want to do are wonderful. And yeah, we don't really have I guess there's some room for that on the doc site, but I don't know exactly where.
What's the policy? I mean, the last thing I think we want to do is, you know, just meaning the EKS team. I think the last thing we want to do from just an open source contribution perspective is just be constantly like just pushing AWS specific stuff up into the common repositories. What is the policy on things like the website and documentation with regards to cloud provider specific content? Has it generally been, well, we're trying to remove those cloud provider specific things and put them in a different area, or we just let as many different examples and, you know, let 1,000 flowers bloom kind of thing?
I think I think it's why I'm so glad you're here. Like, I think we talked about like in Barcelona about like how like new people bring great perspectives, and like these are great questions, and we don't have an answer to this as far as I know. And I don't know. We really need to figure it out, right? We have historically had a sort of like, if it was open source, it can go on the doc site. Sort of that was sort of the de facto position, and we also let some commercial links go on there as well. Like there was a huge list of like the 800 ways to install Kubernetes, like the different companies doing that. I think we've now removed that because most of them are perfectly out of date, and like the companies themselves don't really point to like their 1.0 version of whatever it is. But that's right. We do, for example, if load balancers are only implemented by cloud providers, like, do we not have load balancer documentation on the website? That seems silly to me. But if it's like how to use the AWS VPC CNI provider, on the one hand, it's a good CNI provider. We should document how to use it. On the other hand,
it's like AWS specific, right?
But it's just a CNI provider, even though it only runs on one particular cloud right now. So I think these are getting involved in that question. I think would be a great way to help, and I think that would help not just to get AWS, but like the whole project is to understand.
Yeah, because there's that fine line, right? I mean, we want to produce documentation and tutorials and all this stuff that's the most benefit to the end user and gives people the most information. But at the same time, from an AWS team perspective, we don't want to just, you know, be just constantly throwing AWS specific stuff over the wall and, you know, focusing only on AWS things, right?
You can certainly put that stuff on your own.
And valuable.
Sorry. I was just going to say, you can certainly put that stuff on your own areas of content. And you can also submit that content to the doc site.
As a link or something like that?
Well, or just the same text, right? If you own the text. I don't. If you do a tutorial, you can do it once with like, here's exactly how to do it exactly with EKS, and once how to do it with like the more generic, like, if you have a cluster, here's how you do this task, right? Versus like, do EKS, whatever it is to bring up an EKS cluster, right?
Right, exactly.
So you can do more of an end-to-end thing on your own site and more of a, like, just this one task in the open source site. But I honestly, I don't know that we have a great policy at all. And I think it would be great to figure that out. And I think we need to figure it out. And I think the release team has to date been very focused on the KK repo. And I think that's going to have to change, and I have not kept up to date with how they are thinking about the new multi-repo world that is coming. But yeah, it also applies, as you say, to documentation on our websites and the release notes and all these things.
It's a common problem with any project that's got lots of different sub-projects, right? And lots of companies contributing, right?
We were both involved in OpenStack, so it'd be interesting to see how OpenStack dealt with it.
Yeah, we'll leave that on the table.
Lessons learned, anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Back to my original question. If there are maybe a suggestion, instead of the weekly SIG AWS, or not instead of, but in addition to the SIG AWS weekly meetings, would it be useful to have kind of like either like a bug triage sort of power hour or day or something like that, where we just kind of do a bug smash or triage smash kind of activity?
I actually think that is a wonderful idea. I think some of the other SIGs have started doing that sort of thing. I think it's bi-weekly, by the way.
Sorry, yeah.
It's
like I've now looked at my calendar, and it's just like, whoa, every time slot filled up with a SIG meeting. But
exactly.
Anyway.
One of the things that we could do on that grounds, because I think we're at the beginning of a cycle, is we could spend the next SIG AWS doing exactly what you described, like prioritization, like what should people work on, what are
like
people
a grooming type session.
Yes, I think that would be a really good idea. I think we could, if you wanted to, you could send an email to the SIG AWS mailing list and propose that, and I think we should do that.
Yeah, and maybe sort of like gather a little bit of energy a couple days beforehand, and then use the time period or part of it or after it, whatever, to just kind of power through.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I think
activities.
we can think about like how best to, where we should put said backlog and how best to, like, what should our outputs be. I don't have any great answers right now. It's easier in some of the single purpose repos, right? Like, so Cluster API has a backlog, and it's fairly straightforward because they don't have, lots of other projects in there. But we can look at exactly how they do it. I think that is a wonderful idea, and we should let's provisionally agree. But yeah, if you send an email to the list, I think it'd be a great idea to do that for the meeting in 2 weeks, to dedicate that whole SIG AWS meeting to exactly this grooming.
Cool. I will do that then.
Unless anyone has any objections, I don't know. Like Jay and I have just spoken for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I see there's a few people on the chat, but anyway. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too many other questions. If you think of things that, housekeeping items, that kind of thing, that are just annoying that we can help with, don't hesitate to let me know, either on Slack or mailing list or whatever.
Thank you. And I think, I believe most people have permission to do most grooming activities, like not directly in GitHub, but you use the / commands, like label SIG AWS, I think works. I don't think you can move things as milestones, but you can certainly try and then be rejected, and then we can fix it up or give you permission type thing. But I'm not sure exactly what permissions people have and don't have. But yeah, the bots, we try to stay away from the GitHub direct permissions. If I have them, I don't want them. And try to use the / commands instead, which should work just as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still learning the appropriate ways to do reviews and stuff. I guess I've been using the wrong...
have you been using the actual Wow.
Yeah, I've been using GitHub to, like review or whatever. But whatever. I will learn it, I guess.
It's just I don't think you have permission to apply LGTM other than /LGTM, for example.
Well, no, I haven't been doing the slash. I've just been clicking,
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, those reviews. Yeah,
approve or whatever.
but that doesn't do anything, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll get used to it.
We have our own, special flows, but yes, the /LGTM and /approve are both needed to merge a PR, and they are labels, but you should not be able to apply the labels directly.
Unless you are an approver in the...
Even approvers should not be allowed to apply the labels directly because it's sort of too easy to do by mistake. So the way you do it is you make a comment which says /approve or /LGTM.
Cool.
I don't know that. I think I actually have permission. I would like not to have permission, but that is a separate issue that is being worked through. But yeah, I like the proposal. Next SIG AWS meeting should be issue triage, issue PR triage grooming session 4.1.16. 16? I think 116. I lose track.
Pretty sure.
Okay. Yes, 116. Good. Not off by one. All right. Do we have anything else? If that's, I think that's a great proposal. And thank you, Jay. And if there's nothing else, there's nothing else on the agenda. I don't know if anyone else has anything else they would like to bring up, or Jay, anything else you want to cover there?
Nothing from me for right now. I'm sure I'll think of more things, but not for now.
Thank you.
Is there a roadmap for SIG AWS of like future projects?
I think that's what we should do in the next thing.
Okay.
Because the answer is if there is, it's horrifically out of date. And Seth, if there's anything else, is there anything you want to see on the roadmap?
Maybe like pod level security groups would be cool.
Pod level security groups?
Yep. Like I think Project Calico has like a commercial option for that.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that should definitely be something that we would have to figure out in terms of the triage. I don't think I have no idea how to implement that. So maybe a good way would be to open an issue, and we can make sure to look at it and discuss it next time. I don't know if anyone has any ideas on how we would implement such a thing.
I do not, but I can certainly look into it.
Did you say Calico does it?
Yeah, I think there's an open issue maybe on the AWS roadmap, and they commented on it with their commercial product.
I see. Yes, I think I found the issue you're talking about. Let's see. Seth says, is there a roadmap wish list item? I think it's that issue I just linked, which is containers roadmap issue 177. So yeah, we can certainly look at how that works or what we should do there. I didn't realize that AWS let you do that, so that I will learn something, I guess. Yeah, if there's other issues, please. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I guess we should, in that triage, we should figure out like what repos we should try to look at, because like this issue feels like, I don't know how we would solve it, but like this issue feels like something that could go on the open source roadmap, but is in a different repo than, it's not in KK. And it wouldn't be on the list of the ones I would immediately think to go to either. So we should think about what repos we we try to cover off.
That makes sense to me.
Cool. Does that
I'm
sound good,
still
Seth?
working on sort of like collating and gathering all of the various AWS related repos, just so I understand where all the code lives and who's working on what.
All right. Is there anything else anyone would like to bring up?
Not for me.
All right. Well, I wish everyone a very happy weekend, and thank you for a very wonderful discussion, everyone, and especially Jay and Seth. And we will see you in 2 weeks, and it will likely be a backlog and grooming session.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Talk to you later. Bye.